experience, and I hope to see you all there.
Any further comments? Senator Logan. Could we get a mic to Senator Logan, please? You might just need to turn it on. We turned them off earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So for Waltz this weekend, we're looking for 5 more people to so generously help clean up on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. I know that it's a big ask, but I will be forever indebted to you if you need anything for your Senator project, or like, I don't know, like a snack at the grill. Yeah, please help. I'll email you guys.
Yes, Services Coordinator Porter.
So FogFest has now come to an end in terms of submissions of meals. We have over 550 people who have donated a meal, which is really great. We're close to our $2,000 donation mark, which I'm very excited about. Additionally, it'd be great if all of you could put in your minutes that FogFest participating restaurants, including Polly Eyes, Prairie Canary, Chong's, Casa La de Pancho, Lawn Skis, and Frontier are participating, and if students go for dinner on Saturday and say, I'm here for FogFest to their server, the restaurant will take all of the profits that they made from those specific diners and contribute 10% of those to FogFest, to the 2 organizations that we have, Literacy Works and Aaron's Family Foundation.
Senator Sommer.
Hi. Okay, I'm very sorry I forgot to send this, but there's an on-campus debate tomorrow at 7 p.m. in Noyce 1023. The resolution is that you shouldn't consume art created by artists who have committed sexual assault, and it's paired with Monsoon, which is the sexual... Oh, okay, sorry. So there's an on-campus debate tomorrow led by the debate union at 7 p.m. in Noyce 1023.
Point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you speak slowly and more clearly, please?
Slower?
Yes.
Okay.
And louder, yes.
Okay, sorry. There's a debate tomorrow held by the debate union in Noyce 1023 at 7 p.m. And the resolution is that you shouldn't consume art created by artists who have committed sexual assault. And it's paired with Monsoon, so if you guys want to come watch or tell your constituents, come watch. That's Noyce 1023 at 7 p.m.
Senator Schweitzer.
Test. Okay, here we go. As another weekly reminder, I'm hard of hearing. If I point up, I'm trying this new thing where if I point at my ear, it means I can't hear, and it would either it's because going a little bit too fast or not speaking clear enough into the mic or something. So if you see me do that, I'm trying not to interrupt as much. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. We appreciate that. DOC Bogus.
Bob's and Lyle's interest forms are due at the end of the day tomorrow. Andrea Connor just sent out another email about it. If you have constituents who are interested in submitting a business plan, they can fill out the form.
Any further comments or announcements, events? Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry, could you repeat, or maybe send an email about the participating restaurants and also like where the profits end up going to and things like that for information purposes, or?
Okay, so I hope to send out an all-campus email, but it would be great for outreach purposes to include it also in the minutes, so I will repeat myself. Okay, so Polly Eyes, Frontier, probably Frontier. They're hard to get a hold of. Polly Eyes, Frontier, Prairie Canary, Lawn Skis, Casa de la Pancho, Chong's, Casa La de Pancho, Casa de Pancho, I'm so sorry. Casa. La Casa. Moving on, okay. And the funds will be going to Aaron's, AHREN''S Family Foundation and Literacy Works. Would you like me to explain those organizations?
I have a spelling thing. Could you respell Aaron's, please? Thank you. AHREN''S. 10% of proceeds go to those two organizations. Please also you have to say to your server, I am here for Fog Fast. Fog Fast, not Fog Fest.
Senator Sommer?
What day is that?
Saturday, December 2nd.
Further comments, announcements, or events? Yes.
Just so everyone knows, the website is now updated. So if you guys have any interesting ideas on how we can best utilize the website, feel free to reach out to Max and I. We're kind of working on that now, but functionality should be good, content should be good. Now it's just kind of figuring out how best we can use it as an organization. So yeah.
Further comments, announcements, or events? Yes.
Hi. There's a concert on Friday. Belly Boys and Namdi Akbanaya are playing in Gardner. The show starts at 10 p.m. It's the last show of the semester. It's going to be a jam. I'm really excited. Tell your constituents and people you see, and we'll be tabling on Friday, so you'll get a little taste of the music there. Yep.
Are there any further comments, announcements, or events? Yes.
On Friday night in Main Quad and also Main Lounge, there is a party hosted by First Year Council that's going to be happening. It's called 99 Days, so if you have any first year constituents or friends, tell them to show up. There's going to be music and food and board games and karaoke. So it's going to be a good time.
Where was that?
Main Quad and Main Lounge at 9 p.m.
Senator Gondotra?
So there is the Arctic Lights concert tomorrow at the Gates Tower at 7 p.m.
Yes. Could we pass a mic to the back, please?
Oh, this would be awesome if you could go in your mini minutes. I'm collecting photos for the Cyclone, which is the yearbook, for all seniors, which is senior photo and quote. I sent an email about it. And then if anyone's ahead of a club or is involved in a club and they could send me pictures from that, that would also be really awesome. So that's my announcement.
Further comments, announcements, events? Yes, Senator Stallings? Yes. Could we get a mic to Senator Stallings, please?
Who are you? What's your, yeah.
Further comments, announcements, or events? All right, seeing none further, we'll be moving on to the next item, which is the approval of the minutes. Yes, Senator Okolani?
I have a couple of corrections for the minutes. One, it's Maddie Kerwin, not Maddie Irwin. Also, a couple of vote totals are either in a strange order, in terms of number rather than yes, no, abstention, and then some are listed as pass or fail when they failed or passed alternatively.
All right, we'll make the corrections, thank you. Also, just of note, we will be approving two separate sets of minutes tonight. This will just be one vote for the last approval, since we did have the campus council session last Tuesday that was called for the budget. So with that, if you could please all turn to note the... All right, so by approval of the minutes, we'll be just doing this vote by hand. We don't have the clicker set up quite yet. We're using a new computer tonight. It will be better later, I promise. So all those in favor of the approval of the minutes, if you could please raise your hands high now. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. All right. And all those opposed, please raise your hands now. All those abstaining, please raise your hands now. All right, thank you very much. So the minutes are approved. With that, we'll be moving on to the next item, which is the budgets for all campus events. With that, we'll turn it over to the all campus events co-chairs. Can we get a mic to the ACE co-chairs, please?
Hi. Can we have the agenda up? Also, Miles looks like he just walked off a Twilight movie, so nice haircut. So we had 3 budgets this week. We had sweater party. You should all attend. There's going to be a lot of alcohol and non-alcohol. We didn't buy the alcohol. Of course not. There might be an inflatable snowman. There's also a waltz. We're going to present that budget. And there was a 3rd budget, which, yes, the Mental Health Resource Fair, which will be starting at 4 p.m. in the 2nd floor lobby of JRC and also in JRC 209. There will be food and refreshments. Yeah. Are there any questions about the budgets that do not need to be presented?
All right.
Moving on to the waltz budget. This budget that will be popping up is some additional decoration things and the finalized food that will be bought and catered. All of the other things have been set into place. We've talked to catering. I'll preface by saying that there will be a table separate from the main food arrangements that will have all of the gluten-free and allergy foods so as not to promote contamination or have any of that go down. And yeah, Regina, take it away.
Yeah, you basically covered it. So the food, this should be pretty much self-explanatory. All of the food is based on our meetings with catering. And beyond that, we need a helium tank for some balloons and tape to tape things to things. And the budget is under $3,000, which we were aiming for since the last one was $2,000 and we were given a budget of $5,000-ish total.
Are there any questions about the Winter Waltz budget?
Excellent job with the itemization of these delicious snacks. It's very specific and very helpful to see. And I look forward to the bruschetta with tomato and garlic.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any other questions? Yes, President White. Can we get a mic to President White?
President Sweater.
Oh, stuck between 2 mics that are being used.
Move to previous question.
We see a motion to previous question. Do I see a second? Yes, Senator Taylor. We're now going to start using the clickers. So if we could, have they already got the stuff that corresponds to the letters? Okay, if you could please type in your 2-letter code that corresponds to your name. Please scroll down. Yeah, should be 17. I think we have, yeah, we're missing 2 senators. We're missing Grinnell and, hey Rohan, wait, no, new thing. That's the problem. Does that work? All right, so this is going to be a motion to previous question on the Winter Waltz budget. Motion to previous question being a motion to proceed to the vote. So the voting is now open. A is in favor of the motion to previous question. B opposed. C abstaining. We're looking for a total of 17. All right, so with that, the motion to previous question succeeds, and we will be moving on to a vote for the Winter Waltz budget for a total of $2,955.35. All right, so the voting will now open for the Winter Waltz budget, $2,955.35. A is in favor, B opposed, C abstain. If you could all make sure you voted. Could we make sure everybody votes? If you could all just try one more time, just to make sure that it's worked. A in favor, B, all right, there we go. All right, with that, the motion passes, and $2,955.35 is granted from the All Campus Events Committee to Winter Waltz. Thank you all. With that, we'll be moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the budgets from the Student Programming Committee. I'll turn it over to Services Coordinator Porter. Can we get a mic?
Hello. SPC went well. I don't like the way that sounds. SPC went well. We had 3 budgets. SACNAS got money for shoes and bowling entry. Gourmet Cuisine Society got money for 2 more meals for the semester. And Equestrian Club came for 3 more weeks of equestrian activities, which they will now present. We have 1 more meeting left, so we're doing pretty well. So.
First of all, actually, are there any questions on the budgets other than the Equestrian Club budget? All right, then with that, is there someone who'd like to present about the Equestrian Club budget? Yes, could we get a mic? Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. All right, yeah, so yeah, we were asking for, originally we were asking for the sort of the full reimbursement for drill team, and then like the $12 reimbursement for lessons. What was ultimately passed was what we were doing the last 3 weeks. So that's with a $5 contribution for drill team. I don't know how much I, like being here 3 weeks ago, I don't know how, should I just present everything again or?
Sure.
All right. So we have basically 2 items-ish. We have lessons and the drill team. So lessons are just sort of anyone from the college can go to the Barn Triple V stables and take lessons. To help make that as accessible as possible, we try to get part of the $20 lesson cost sort of subsidized, so that cost isn't really a barrier to people who want to learn to ride. The other part of it is the drill team, where we have an advanced team and an intermediate beginning team, where since they're all required to take lessons, we ask that like a good chunk of that is covered. For the last 3 weeks, it's worked pretty well to have just the $5 contribution. Yeah, we're also having an event at the end of next week, so that's what we're practicing for.
Are there any questions? Yes, Senator Logan.
Wait, you said an event? What event?
Yeah, so we're doing a drill team performance next Friday, and I can give more details about that if you want.
Where is it?
It's at Triple V Stables. We're also providing transportation there, so we're shuttling people from the JRC starting at 6, and the event starts at 6:30, I think.
Any further questions about the Equestrian Club budget? Yes, President White. Can we get a mic to President White, please?
Move to previous question.
I see a motion to previous question. Do I see a second? Senator Schweitzer. All right, so we will open the polls to the motion to previous question for the Equestrian Club budget. The polls are now open. A is in favor, B opposed, C abstain for the motion to previous question.
Point of information, the committee did approve this budget.
Yeah, we're starting shuttling at 6, so the event's at 6.
If everybody could please make sure you voted. We're just looking for 2 more votes. Just 1 more. Everyone could please just try to vote 1 more time, just to make sure we haven't missed you. Oh, there we go. All right, so the motion to previous question passes, and we'll now move into the voting on the budget for $1,125 from the Student Programming Committee to the Equestrian Club. So the voting is now open. A is in favor, B opposed, C abstain. $1,125. We're just looking for 1 more vote. All right, with that, the motion passes, and $1,125 is granted to the Equestrian Club from the Student Programming Committee. Thank you. And with that, we'll be moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the resolution proposal for a student trustee. This will be guided by Senator Ercolani and Senator Doudna.
Just me on this one, I think. The bylaws is both of us.
It's sincere. Thanks.
All right, everyone. So as a part of the student initiative process this semester, there was an initiative passed that was supporting the creation of a position for a student voting member to be on the Board of Trustees. So that is both this point and the next point of the agenda.
Sorry, is this resolution student trustee or bylaw reforms new position?
Resolution.
Okay, second. Thank you.
So this step of the thing is a resolution, as it says, to begin the process of creating a position for a student trustee. Functionally, it outlines the rationale behind why both myself and I think most of the members of Reform Committee agreed with what was written, why the student trustee position should happen, and the steps that this body can begin to take, which is the resolved portion. If I'm not mistaken, all voting on these matters will be in the next campus council. So this is just an introductory session of this. I will not be here at next campus council, so I can answer any and all questions you have now about this resolution.
Senator Rogan. Can we get a mic to Senator Rogan, please?
When it just comes to wording, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know, the one where it says, whereas even though adequate representation at a student policy opinion is sometimes ignored and decisions are sometimes explained less than fully, I think that wording could be a little more concise, like inadequate, like inadequately instead of less than fully, something like that. I also think that we might want to include the fact that a student initiative passed to prompt this. I think that's powerful. And I'll leave it there for now.
Yeah, to the second point, this is totally my fault, is not an updated version of the resolution as Reform discussed it. We did include a passage about the results of the student initiative. We also changed portions of the passage you mentioned in the first point to be more exacting in its language.
Are there any further questions? Yes, President White.
Wondering if it's possible to get a revised, most up-to-date version out to this group, or at least to be projected on the screen, and if not, I would ask that we move on.
Yeah, of course. I will send the revised version to Max tonight, so that way this group has enough time to review it before the next session of Campus Council.
Thanks.
Senator Logan?
Will there be another Reform Committee meeting before the next Campus Council?
There was not planning to be one, not that I'm aware of. That would be a question for Administrative Coordinator Hill.
Okay.
If you want to help discuss these matters, just email me, please. Okay.
Any further questions? All right, seeing no further, this is not a matter to be voted on at this session, so we will be moving on to the next item, which is the reform amendment proposal on the student trustees, and this is brought forth also by Senator Ercolani.
Yeah, well, there's two sections to this. We'll start with the new position version. Functionally, both I and I suppose the committee wanted to bring two options to Campus Council, so that way Council could express its voice in this matter in terms of what it deemed best. So the first resolution is to create within the bylaws of the Student Government Association a new position, which would be a new article, because it would be an elected, the way we have it structured at the moment would be an elected non-cabinet officer, and that would be the positions of the responsibilities of the voting representative to the Board of Trustees would be outlined in this section. And again, I can answer any questions about this half of it. Just a preview, the other half is wrapping the new position into the position of the SGA president.
So first, you want to ask questions about this stuff?
Yeah.
All right, so first, if there's anybody who has questions about the resolution for inserting a new position for a non-cabinet officer, are there any questions? President White.
It looks like Services Coordinator Porter wanted to speak.
Services Coordinator Porter.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking about this resolution and reform in general and its implementation, and I wonder if it is advantageous to the Constitution as a kind of a piece of this institution to put it in the bylaws before it's been approved by the trustees. I think the resolution makes sense, but I worry about having something that in the Constitution that can't actually be implemented, and we don't know, and then leaving it in there and it being irrelevant.
Treasurer Steckel.
Can I propose a sunset clause? at the end. So to explain, like, a bit of like a point that says that at the end of a year or 2 years, if no such position has been, a sunset clause being at the end of a year or 2 years, if no such position has been established, that this like section is struck from the Constitution. That's a thing that we can do.
Senator Kalani.
I agree that having something in the bylaws that might not be being established by the board might look bad in terms of just our, like, the history that we have of records keeping. I also feel that by creating the position and by instilling it in the bylaws, it adds another level of pressure on the trustees to have such a position, because if there is someone who is duly elected by the student body, or the position of the president is changed in order to represent this position, I feel like that is another like form of saying this person is here, the student body has elected this person for however long it takes them to establish the position formally. And it just, I feel like that is a unique form of pressure that this could offer, but I completely understand the points and, yeah.
Further questions? Yes, Services Coordinator Porter.
Yeah, so I think that's one way. I think that's where the resolution is really impactful. It shows that not only does the student body agree with this, but also campus council and SGA, those people who would be responsible for implementing it, well, partially responsible, are in support. But I think putting it in the Constitution and saying this is what the president has to do now, or this is what this person has to do now, without consulting the trustees may dissuade them from accepting it or wanting to, or to feel like they have a part in what this position would do in trustee meetings.
To address the role that it would have within the board, the SGA bylaws change would only, the way I tried to structure it was only to address the responsibilities it would have to Student Government Association, not within the board. Like, there's a clause in there that says, and perform other duties for the board as assigned by the board. So this position being odd in that it would be jointly, like, have responsibilities to SGA and the board. I wanted it to be established on our side in terms of what they had to do for us, and then let the board sort things out when or if they finalized and formalized everything.
Senator Warman.
I'm with Emily on this. I think that it's counterproductive to include something that we can't necessarily follow through on. And even with the sunset clause, what concerns me most is even if we did follow through with including this, knowing that we haven't consulted with the Board of Trustees, is that there are some things in here that are literally impossible to do without the consent of the Board of Trustees, and that sets whoever is elected in this position to fail, and then sets up whoever would be responsible for making sure they do their job to fail, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Just as a point of fact, I'm pretty sure, like 99% sure, there's nothing in this resolution that would place a burden on this position to do something that we couldn't give them as a legislative body to do. Like I said, there's no mandate to vote on the board. There's no mandate to attend private sessions of the board. It's just, like, this is the aspect of things that we can control, which is why I was laying it out as such.
President White, did you have a comment?
Yes, I agree with what's been said by Services Coordinator Porter and Senator Logan. Additionally, I just wanted to provide some information. So I'm currently serving as the president, so in my capacity, I'm very aware of the current responsibilities of the SGA president as it pertains to the board. Wanted to share those with you all. So the only additional things that this role does compared to what I, as SGA president, already do, or like the role of the president already does. So these are, what I'm about to say is what would be added, It's one meeting in June that's a couple days in Colorado, I believe. So flying for that, I don't know. That would be some logistics for us to consider. And then to meet regularly with committees. So the committee meetings vary, and the most frequently meeting committee meets once a month. So it would be a pretty minimal addition to the president's normal responsibilities.
Further questions? Services Coordinator Porter?
I do want to stay on the point of the position is solely focusing on SGA side. The creation of this position and it actually having to deal with the trustees requires consent by the trustees and requires that they agree to this. And so you can't say that you can have this position and it doesn't necessitate, or like in the Constitution, it doesn't necessitate any action by the trustees, because it is us trying to intervene in their institution, in their process.
Treasurer Steckel?
I disagree. Just looking at it, I think there are a couple of phrases that are really important in order to like make the distinction here, where this is something that I think actually doesn't really impose anything on the Board of Trustees. Specifically, it says attend meetings of the Board of Trustees and perform other duties for that body as assigned whenever possible. So that whenever possible, I think, leaves it up to the Board of Trustees whether or not they would invite this position, or if we were to make it the president, which is the other one of these that we haven't even gone over yet. It's sort of like just up to the jurisdiction of what the board would do. I think actually, like reading it, it looks like it's constructed in such a way that it would be an agreement. So when I suggested the sunset clause, I really just suggested that as an option. I think I don't think it's in conflict at all, and I don't think that it has a it doesn't have any power without the Board of Trustees, but also what this specifically establishes does not go against anything that the Board of Trustees has stated implicitly by not saying anything. Words.
Further questions or comments? Senator Logan.
Quick question. Would this be, with other SGA positions, a paid position?
So payment is not, except in the position of paid non-cabinet officers, explicitly laid out in the bylaws, if I'm not mistaken, which is why it wasn't laid out as such in this. That would be a decision of the treasurer's office and cabinet and future sessions of campus council to set that in the budget if they so chose.
Okay, I just think that's something to keep in consideration because like what President White brought up, how a lot of the president's position or responsibilities are similar to what's listed in this position. If what the direction we're going with here is to get a voting member on the Board of Trustees, then maybe instead of creating a whole new potentially paid role, it's incorporated into someone who's already working with the Board of Trustees already.
Further questions? Yes, Treasurer Steckel.
Can I suggest that we move on to the other resolution, the one where it's not just a representative, but where it's the president? Because I think that this is a really natural segue.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really natural segue if Miles wants to pull that up. So functionally, the other reform is a lot smaller because, as President White said, a lot of the responsibilities are already enumerated in the Article 1 of the bylaws. Functionally, it adds Yes, it adds the two highlighted sections at the bottom of the resolution that the president shall attend all sessions of the Board of Trustees whenever possible and express the opinion of the student body and SGA to that body and report the public business of the board to campus council. And so I feel like the language is relatively similar to the previous resolution in that it's non-binding on the trustees, and frankly, this might have a greater degree of success in the short term,
President White?
I and other recent SGA presidents have already been doing both of these things that are listed, so I think this would serve as formalizing that.
Treasurer Steckel?
Yeah, I second that. I think that as of right now, the only reason that members of SGA cabinet go to trustee meetings is because we are invited. There's nothing institutionalized that makes it so that we can point and say, hey, the student body wants us to be there. It's just sort of like generally we say, hey, we probably should be at this thing because it's important. They say, okay, yeah, you're right. Establishing this formally will give future members of SGA something to fall back on in case there's any sort of controversy over whether members of SGA cabinet should attend trustee meetings, which I think in all cases they should. This doesn't establish voting power at all, though that would be awesome. Yeah.
Any further questions on this aspect? Yes, Senator Stallings.
So are these two bylaw reforms like in juxtaposition to one another? Like are these two possible suggestions or?
I saw them as two possible suggestions. They don't necessarily need to be one or the other because of the fact that this is just, like Treasurer Steckel said, like establishing in writing the responsibilities that the president already has, whereas the other one, I feel like long-term when I wrote the STI-Fund piece was what I had more in mind of, but make of these what you will. It is no preference to me whether or not either of them are considered like as being one or the other or both being potentials.
Yes, Senator Fulber-Benetton.
Do you have a preference of one over the other? Like, you just said in terms of the either or, that was my understanding, but if you as the author have some particular insight that hasn't been shared, if you could bring that to light, that would be very helpful.
As the author, my initial one that I was in favor of was the creation of a new position, but after talking with Cabinet and especially President White, I don't know that it would necessarily, again, short-term be a difference, and because the president is the elected, like the chief elected officer of the student government, they would assumingly be the best candidate amongst the student body to hold such a position. The only positives I could see to the creation of a new position is that, in my opinion, I feel like it would put more pressure on the trustees to accept a voting spot on the board.
VPSA EPS?
Quinn, what meeting would you want said person to have a vote in?
I would hope that they would have a vote in the general meetings of the board as in addition to whatever committees they were assigned to by governance.
Okay.
Further questions? Yes, Senator Stallings.
So just in light of what evidence suggested here, considering the two kind of different reforms here, personally, the idea of it being a new position seems more appealing to me, just because like the president, a given president being the chief elected officer and being duly elected, I'm still not completely convinced that that would be, like the person that occupies that position would also be the student body's choice for this position, like to be a voting member of the trustee, like among the trustees. I'm not entirely sure, and I mean, like personally, that seems like it makes sense to me, but I'm not sure if that's something that would be like a logical assumption to make. I don't like assuming that would be like that this would be the way to go in this situation, if that makes sense.
VPSA EPS?
My biggest concern with having a separate entity other than the SGA president or some SGA exec or whatever to take on this position is because to be in those meetings and to have a vote, you have to know a lot of things that individual is not in meetings that me, Misha, and Summer are in all the time. Also, is not in cabinet meetings where we learn about other things. And so therefore, and I highly doubt we would allow that individual to be in those meetings. That's just my personal view. And so therefore, they don't have the knowledge to make those decisions because like we know a lot more than that individual would know if that's the position theirs to hold. And that's my biggest problem. It's just like to make a decision, you should be able to have some grasp on a lot of different things, which is what me, Misha, and Summer do in our different jobs.
So that point was discussed in committee, and I think the quasi-resolution that we reached was that the position would be required to meet with the SGA president, which is kind of a nod to the fact that this other proposal exists regularly in order to be briefed on the matters that concern both the student body and whatever issues that they would be discussing in committee. To expand slightly, there was also, I know that the responsibilities of the cabinet officers are great, which was another intent behind the creation of a new position. That, I know President White has said that this wouldn't be too much of a burden on her time, but in case it ever was a burden on the position of the president, in the short term before this is a regular thing that's well known as a job of the president, my intention was not to put the time necessary to become as much of an expert as possible on all the matters being discussed by the board and the committees that this person sits on, not to put that additional time on the office of the president, who I know has many other things to do, but as I said, she's said she'd be fine with that, so.
Services Coordinator Porter.
So I can't really speak for the president, but thinking about the time commitment that would go into debriefing a third party for this position about everything that goes on versus just having a slight extension of your position, voting in meetings that you're already attending, I think that the creation of the other position would actually cause or create a lot more work for the president and various cab members who are responsible. Additionally, I would like to say that I think the fact that students vote for the president, knowing that the president is involved in these trustee meetings and is the main connection between students and trustees, signifies that voting power would be a logical extension, more so than a third party.
Senator Logan.
Yeah, I was just going to say on the time commitment piece, I wouldn't be too worried about that when we're doing this, because what we're not doing is sitting here and asking hey, Summer, can you go do this and that, do more stuff. What we're saying is that we as SGA or we as the student body want our presidents in the future to do these things. These will be the requirements for the president. People will take that into account when they run, and I would hope to a reasonable extent, not asking someone to do 20 more hours worth of work, but that'll be something that people should take into account.
Senator Stallings.
Yeah, on just the back of what Senator Logan just mentioned, I think, just to consider the implications of what it would mean to, what the presidency of SGA would mean, because, moving forward, because I think typically it's just thought of being kind of the chief officer of the cabinet and campus council and things, but also the responsibility of being a voting member of the trustees is, that's a big deal. So I think there would be, I think, larger implications for what the future could look like so far as SGA and campus.
Any further questions? Yes, President White.
Yeah, I agree with what was said by Services Coordinator Porter once again. Just wanted to echo that. And also, Senator Toombu pointed out that some of the information that the SGA president receives is confidential, or it's like tied to a personal situation or a series of personal situations that would not be ethically or legally allowed to be disclosed to another person. So I agree that it would be more efficient to be within the role of the SGA president.
Any further questions? All right, seeing none further, this is not a matter that we are voting on as well, so we will be moving on to the next item, which is the reform amendment on the SGA bylaws. This the reform amendment proposal for the ACE and ACES directors. Are there any questions on this if we can get it? All right, do you want to take questions on this? Great. Do you want to grab a mic? All right, if you have any questions, you can direct them to the ACE co-chairs. Any questions about this?
An overview about this is, so the Division of Student Affairs is taking all campus events student safety under their wing next semester, and the old bylaw stated that we would serve kind of as like supervisor, like type thing, whatever, to the ACES co-directors, and so this is just rephrasing what our relationship will be, seeing as they will be supervised by the Division of Student Affairs, and keeping in mind that we would like to have input as to how their operating business would affect SGA events, especially those of all-campus events.
Are there any questions about this resolution?
Motion to previous question?
Well, this is also not a matter that we are voting on, so with that, we will just simply move on, and this will be discussed at a later campus council. With that, we'll be moving on to the 9th item on the agenda, which is the reform amendment on the SGA bylaws, a presentation by Senator Ercolani and Doudna.
Hello again. So this is our joint senator project. We undertook this to try and make the bylaws a little bit clearer, update them, which is, again, with the other bylaws resolution does the same thing that ACE is presenting with respect to ACES. If you'd like, I can go over every single point that was changed.
Services Coordinator Porter.
The changes aren't highlighted, correct?
In my version, they are.
I couldn't find that, but okay.
I don't know if they were highlighted in the Google Doc.
So is it the whole? Okay, it is highlighted.
Okay.
For future reference, when it comes to reforms, you don't put things in that aren't being changed.
I mean, technically, the resolution is the way the resolution is structured, because I didn't want to have multiple, just like, I wanted to make it slightly easier, so functionally what happened was that I made it a resolution to strike the bylaws entirely and replace them with this text, which is the exact same text as the old bylaws with the exception of the highlighted portions, which I understand is less than, like, good, but I was like halfway through this process before I realized that I probably shouldn't have done it this way, and I ended up not having enough time to reformat it to be like a series of resolutions with respect to specific portions of the bylaws.
So all you would really need to do in that instance is just include the highlighted portions all in one document and just take out all the other text. You wouldn't have to do a series of resolutions. Yeah, it would be, I think, advantageous to us all if you could explain the process for what you decided to update and why, at least for me, and go over any big things that you've seen that you changed.
Definitely. So the way we went about this process initially was transcribing the entirety of the bylaws as they were, without making changes at the onset. And then we went back through and looked at things after, having transcribed it, like a general knowledge of the way it was structured, and went back through and made changes to the sections that we felt we were most able to make changes to in terms of our experience as senators, as well as changing some language to reflect some new policies of SGA or some like updated responsibilities of positions, as well as I made a couple of changes that reflected responsibilities of officers in some respects, or paid staff members or cabinet members, to be reflective of how certain situations would be handled by other positions that weren't necessarily specifically laid out in the bylaws as they stood previously.
VPSA EPS.
Can you go over every single one point by point of what you changed?
Certainly.
And Miles, do you mind going through it as he talks about?
So the first change falls under Section 2C, the Student Services Coordinator.
Did you ask any of the cabinet members before you decided to change their roles?
This was brought up at reform, and no, I most certainly didn't. And for that, the rationale was that since it was being brought up at reform, the way I interpreted a conversation I had with Summer, which could be completely incorrect, and if so, I certainly apologize, was that she would be able to, when these changes were proposed, know whether or not they were valid, and that was a process that Administrative Coordinator Hill, Abby, and I went through in terms of listening to the concerns that President White and he had, and making changes accordingly to their beliefs about sections that might not be necessarily appropriate. And if I'm not mistaken, we followed pretty much everything they advised us change, because they're much more experienced than we are.
If you could continue to do the, as VPSA EPS requested, a like line by line request, yeah.
Point of information. Almost all the changes we made are like very tiny, like wording, like just like things that the cabinet or like that we already do but aren't in the bylaws, and just like making the wording match up with the practice. Like very few of the things we did are actual changes to like what has been practiced this year.
Point of order. I just am looking under, there are substantial changes, I think. And it's a bad sign if I read something in my position and don't know what that means, so.
Okay. Well, we'll go point by point and try and assuage concerns that anyone has. The first two changes are to the position of the Student Services Coordinator. The first is the attempt to help provide essential student status to representatives of groups for NSO org fair, which I feel has been, at least in my personal experience and the groups that I've worked with, an impediment to being able to present groups to new students, because people just can't be on campus early enough to participate.
Point of order. For that reason, we don't hold, there's an org fair during NSO, and then so I don't do the org fair during NSO, I do the org fair the first week of classes in order to have all students to be able to, because in my position, I cannot provide student status.
Point of information.
President White, the yield to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify my interpretation of my guidance as interim reform chair for this committee was to run this clause by Services Coordinator Porter. I was also thinking about the multiple organization fairs and also how that didn't go over the best this year and how there was, I think it offered good opportunity, but was a high workload. And so logistically, we might move towards one org fair during, actually when classes have begun. But then I also wanted and recommended that Hannah Bogus be looped into that conversation as the previous NSO intern who coordinated NSO to get feedback on that. Additionally, some of the reforms pertain to Robert's rules and how we run campus council, in which I advised the current presiding officer to be consulted. Additionally, there are some technical updates, especially the ones, a very substantial addition to the bylaws would be the addition of the tech committee, and I recommended that the SGA tech advisor be consulted, and I defer to his judgment on those points. So I do hope that those parties were consulted. Yeah, that was my intent. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
I mean, as President White just said, I certainly defer to the judgment of the people whose positions these actually are, and if at any point we made a change to your position that you do not agree with, I'd be more than happy to revisit that and remove it if reform is fine.
Point of information, when consulting people like the services coordinator, the presiding officer, and the technical advisor, I did forget to jot down this actually amendment, and I did not send it to you. That's why you're not consulted on this. So that is my fault, and I'm sorry for that.
Okay.
So the second change to the services coordinator position, that was just intended to be reflective of other policies that different cabinet officers and paid officers have in the event that they are charged with hiring someone, but that person is unable to fulfill their duties or unable to, the hiring doesn't go through. That was just being reflective of that.
Point of information. Do you guys have written rationales for each of these things, by chance? Or are we just gonna go through all, I mean this in the least disrespectful way possible. It seems like there are a lot of things that need to be wrapped up and tied up before we can have a meaningful discussion on this, and I'm wondering if it's been written down anywhere, if there's any way we can hold this until you've met with the cabinet members that need to be met with for all these things.
I can send that to Max later tonight so it can be distributed to this body, and we can just end on this point now, so that way people can make their own decisions. But like I said, I'm not going to be here at next campus council, so just email me if you have any other questions.
Okay.
Point of information, are we voting on this tonight?
No.
And there is a reform committee on Sunday?
I think there should.
Yes, we can hold a reform committee on Sunday.
Great.
All right.
Are there any further questions on this resolution? Yes, Treasurer Steckel.
Motion to move on.
As in a motion to limit debate to 0.
Yes.
All right, I see a motion to limit debate to 0 seconds to, I see a second, Senator Logan. All right, we're going to use your clickers if you have forgotten about them. This is a motion to limit debate to 0 minutes and 0 seconds. And we're going to, the poll is now open. A is in favor, B opposed, C abstain. Did any senators leave? If you noticed a fellow senator leave? Thanks. That motion passes, and the debate is limited to 0 minutes and 0 seconds, and time is up. So we'll be moving on to the next item, which is the cabinet report from the Assistant Treasurer, who's not here. Does anybody want to take questions for, yes, Treasurer
Yeah,
Stepper?
I can speak for him. He actually, Wise has a report that, if you don't mind, I'm just going to read real quick, and then if anyone has questions, I can answer for that. So Wise held Green Fund Committee with Claire Magdalena on Thursday, attended 2 weekly cabinet meetings on Monday, attended Campus Council on Tuesday, attended bi-weekly meetings with DSA on Friday, placed LED surveys in Burling on Thursday, processed receipts, vouchers, approvals, and more every day, sent and received many emails every day, held office hours Monday through Friday, answered people's questions about SGA funding, still meeting with budgetary shareholders for budgeting next semester, approved e-time time cards, and processed retroactive approvals. That is his report.
Are there any questions about the Assistant Treasurer report? Seeing none, we'll be moving on to the report from the President.
Yeah, so since I wrote this report, I met with the interim vice president of the Office of Development, Alumni, and Relations. Additionally, for my office hours, there's been pretty low attendance. One of the things that I've been doing this semester is holding an office hour in the Bear over the hour between 3:15 and 4:15 in hopes of being more accessible to student athletes who are often frequent the Bear at that time, but have been not very well utilized while I'm there. And then also even in the Grill, just, I don't know, maybe it's the time I'm going or something. So I'm interested in hearing feedback on office hours and the best way that I can be make myself available for students.
Any questions on the President report? Yes, Senator Felder-Bannatyne.
All right, so I don't know about the office hours, but I do have a couple of questions because it seems like you've had an awesome couple of weeks. So I was just wondering about the Fossil Fuel Divestment and Climate Impact Task Force. It seems like you talked about the thoughts on your process, and I was wondering if you could reflect out what those thoughts would be.
I just hesitate here because it was a long process. I think, but so they asked what my key takeaways were, and I was like, ugh, felt limited. So I'll be compiling a long report that I'll be sending before the end of the semester or sometime over winter break, definitely before the end of winter break. And I'm happy to share that with you all as well. So a couple of things. One was shareholder activism, and I expressed that was just something that I never really considered before I learned that it was an option, but then I also was not convinced that it would be effective. I commended the process. I thought it was neat.